Most companies have a sales process in place already, and the steps of the sales process are pretty standard. Step number one, identify opportunities, qualify, uncover needs, propose solutions, negotiate, follow up, support, whatever the steps are. They're not too different from company to company, so let's not be surprised if the sales process by itself doesn't provide a competitive advantage. The one piece of the sales process I want to focus on in this video tip is the piece called uncovering needs, which I actually teach salespeople to stop uncovering needs, which causes people to question, well, how could that be? It's been part of the sales process for 30, 40 years. Well, here's the problem. If we're going to deal with reality, is it possible, especially if you're in emerging markets, especially if customers are moving into new areas, is it possible that customers don't really know what they need? And the answer I hear every week is, yeah, I meet a lot of customers who aren't sure what they need. Secondly, even if they do know what they need, customers are reluctant to share information with salespeople they don't yet know and trust. So the idea that I'm going to uncover needs as a given in the sales process has become a little more difficult in today's selling environment. Now, if we take this a step further, what you find is uncovering needs, the word need doesn't mean one thing. There's two types of needs, active needs and latent needs. So what's an active need? I don't know, driving down the road, poof, tire pops, safely make it over the side of the road with a flat tire. Do you have a need? Absolutely. It's an active need. You have a flat tire. You're on the side of the road. That's not what you would want. What's an example of a latent need? Suppose I walked out to the parking lot with you and I happen to look under the right rear of your car and notice the tread is completely gone. The cord's showing through. I can see the steel is starting to fray. I just might say to you as a friend, hey, you might want to look under your car here. And you look underneath and say, whoa, look at that. Well, do you have a need for tires? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Most people buy tires before they go completely flat. The question is, did you have a need for tires yesterday or the day before? And the answer is absolutely. Because very few people, I don't know how you drive, but tires don't wear down overnight. So what's interesting is some small fraction of the overall customer needs can be characterized by active needs, where the lion's share would then be latent needs. And I'll give you an example of this. One of the exercises I do, it's just a small little proof of concept, is when I have a room full of participants in one of my training classes, I'll see somebody with a cell phone and I'll ask, hey, George, I notice you have a cell phone on your desk. And that's okay. I have one too. Why do you have a cell phone? Why do you own a cell phone? And invariably, I get an answer like this. Well, so I can make calls. And then I might ask Susan, hey, Susan, why do you own a cell phone? And she might say, well, I use it to keep track of my calendar. Okay. And then I move on to someone else and say, hey, Ralph, why do you have a cell phone? Well, I use it for work. So imagine yourself if you were the salesperson at a cell phone store and somebody walked through the front door and you say, how can I help you? And they say, I'd like to buy a new cell phone. And you say, hello, it's time to uncover needs. What do you need a cell phone for? And they say, well, to make calls. And then you go running over to the cell phone and say, this one makes calls, and this one makes calls, and this one makes calls. I would argue that most people buy products and services for multiple reasons. Rarely is it just one thing that's important to the customer. So if somebody walks in the door of a cell phone store and you say, how can I help you? I'm here to buy a cell phone. Why do you want a cell phone? I need to make calls. One of the ways is to start down the path of what I might call interrogation. Well, what else do you want it to do? And they say, well, I don't know. I guess I like to play games when I'm on the airplane. What else? I don't know. I like to check my email. What else? What else? What else? What else? The opportunity really is to be prepared in advance to provide more value. And I'll give you an example, a perfect example. 2 weeks ago, this is the exact list I used when I trained a customer in San Francisco. This is a list of business issues that might be important to the customer. And my argument to them was, you should know what might be important to the customer before you show up or call up the customer. I'm not asking you to be clairvoyant. I'm just saying it should not be a surprise that some of the things on this list might be valuable to the customer. Here's an example. By the way, there are 72 items on this list. Where'd I get this list? I spent about 10 minutes on the company's website, and these things are talked about. So what's important to the customer? Maybe education and training is important. Ease of use, operational efficiency, globalization, contract terms and conditions, performance, upgradability, reporting, documentation, geographic coverage, flexibility, standards, regulatory, compliance, you can go on. And risk management, staffing, decision support, reporting, company viability. And this list, many of the things on this list are consistent from customer to customer. So it's not like I have to do this every time I do a sales call or every time I do a presentation. Out of these 72 items, probably 90% would apply to almost every customer that I could possibly talk to. So instead of uncovering needs, which I encourage people not to do, the real opportunity to add value is what I call needs development. So for example, Mr. Customer, besides the obvious goal of reliable performance and also having an upgradable platform that addresses your compliance issues, what specifically are you most concerned about? If you notice, I'm not just extracting information, I'm actually contributing. So if I bring up 3 or 4 things, besides the obvious goals of A, B, C, and D, a customer, they have goals too. It's called priming the pump. They'll bring up 2, 3, 4 things as well. But I have now, if I bring up 4 and they bring up 4, then 72 minus 8, quick math, I have 64 items I could still bring up in the sales call to potentially add value. Do we also have to pay attention to foreign governments? Do we have to worry about economic conditions? How is this going to impact your partnerships and distribution channels? And the answer might be it doesn't at all. Tom, that's not important to us. So what's happening here is you hear the buzz phrase, consultative selling. And that's what consultants do. They narrow down. Is this important? Yes. Okay, let's categorize that. What about this, this, and this? And they go, yes, yes, no. What about this and this? Yes, no, yes. So uncovering needs is an extraction exercise. That's what people do at fast food restaurants. On the other side of the stainless steel table, you basically say, I want one of those, and one of those, and they put it in a bag and hand it to you, and there's very little value add there. Needs development is customers are going to share fractionally. They're going to say, I want reliability, performance, and I want secure environment. That's not all they want. So my question to you is, how many reasons do you want customers to have to buy from you? 3? 2? Just 1? I would rather have 10 or 12. Tap into 10 or 12 things that might be important to the customer. Now this list, one more thing, I don't worry about prioritizing this list, because if I have 7 or 8, 9 people in the room, different things might be important to different people. So I'm not worried about prioritizing the list. I just want to talk about things that are relevant to customers. So the philosophy is less about depending on the customer to identify all their needs and put yourself into position of being an order taker. It's really about what issues are you prepared to bring up in the conversation, your next conversation with the customer, and all subsequent conversation with that customer that they may not think to bring up of their own. The answer is if you don't bring up important topics, you leave the door wide open for someone else to be a more valuable resource. Thought leadership in sales becomes a trump card, where in fact, if you're the one that's bringing up topic after topic that might be important to the customer, you have an unfair advantage over everyone else who's chasing the small fraction of needs that would be uncovered by just extracting them, trying to extract them from the customer. Active needs, yes, we can help the customer. Latent needs, there's tons of opportunities to bring up other things that might be important that help you add value.